All right, wonderful. Welcome to the Mind, Body, and Soul podcast show. I'm so excited that we have Kate Nelligan here today, and she's going to be talking with us about spiritual psychology and transformation with horses. So welcome, Kate. I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday evening to join us. We really, really, really appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So before we jump in, I would love to tell our audience just a little bit about who you are and how we met. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So Kate and I met through a networking group called She Leads, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with Beth Bowen. So if you are a woman in business and you want to meet more amazing women in business, I highly recommend She Leads. You can Google She Leads and talk to Beth Bowen and she will hook you up. And I remember they were asking us, share a couple things about you and then what you do. So I was like, well, and we hopped into a room together, a virtual room. And I said, well, my name's Alex and I sell essential oils and I have a podcast and I'm really interested in working with horses. I just really love them. You're like, this is wonderful because I work with horses and I've been looking for someone who does essential oils that I can collaborate with on classes. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're a pair made in heaven. And you have been just such an amazing person in the community. And with the background that you have a master's degree in spiritual psychology. You've spent over a decade in deep study with personal development, and you were in a corporate setting for over 10 years to help people face fears and access their own answers and shine. And a lot of people have said that when they work with you, they get clarity, focus, empowerment. They get to celebrate their successes. They have accountability, embrace their truth, and so much more. Like, I love all of those words with what people are saying about you. And that's what that's what I hope that we can glean from today, is just to give people a peek into who you are and what you do. So please expand upon anything that I've said that you think would be important for our people to know.
Yeah, thank you for that. I love that. I love your attention to detail. And I had set an intention too to manifest people who love horses in the networking. And then, of course, you pop on. And that's how we can be more intentional about business and life, is just setting intentions. And then the right people show up for both sides, right? For wins on both sides. But from the introduction, I think the thing that I would add would just be that I never saw myself as a life coach. And then having this master's really opened up this path of service and this path for me of wanting to give back. And so when I first started, I was really doing more general life coaching with women and empowerment groups. And then the horses kind of came in and took over my life and my coaching practice, because they really truly are the best coaching partners. And I've loved horses and I've grown up with them my whole life. And so that is, the best use of me is really pairing my background in corporate and in marketing, and also my training in spiritual psychology, with the gifts of the horses to help people. So it's been non-linear in terms of my path of being in corporate and entertainment, but now I help corporate companies, in addition to women, with really their personal and professional development.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So how did you get into doing all of these kinds of things? How does one do that?
Yeah. So I actually used to be an atheist, which people always find so shocking and surprising. I was not really into spirituality growing up. I was very much a scientist and wanted to be a veterinarian. And I started to have more experiences where things were not explainable, and my intuition was really growing. And then my mom was always into metaphysics and I was always into horses, and it just naturally took hold when I moved out to Los Angeles, that there was a program in spiritual psychology. And I was I was a vice president in a movie studio at the time, but I wasn't happy. And I had reached a level of success and then kept going, then what? And what's next? And I knew I needed deeper fulfillment. I knew I needed to really tap into my heart and my soul's journey. And so luckily found that. And through coaching to start, and speaking and writing, things that I've always just been kind of naturally gifted at, And then knowing that the horses could come in as well and partner. And I found them through my first mentor was doing equine therapy with addicts in recovery. And I was watching transformation happen in 2 hours. That took 2 years in my master's program. And I said, I want this. I want to see more of this. I want to be a part of this. And so I was an apprentice for a year, learning how to do these exercises with horses and how to help people and facilitate transformation and growth. And then launched into it with my own business.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. And so when you were in corporate America and you kept asking, then what's next? What would you say to someone who's in that space right now?
Yeah, great. It is ultimately the inner work and the self-awareness that comes from asking ourselves these deeper questions and being okay, first of all, if we don't have an answer right away. I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to be just a general life coach. And one of my friends who is very intuitive one day just said to me, I see you coaching with horses. And I said, like on horseback riding? I didn't even know that existed. I didn't know what I currently do even existed. So the way I look at our calling and our purpose is to go back to childhood. What did you love? What was natural? What is fun for you? What is play? So if work starts to get really difficult and it's not just a time, like a phase that will pass, you start to really feel like it's not a fit for you anymore. It's starting to ask these deeper questions. And I have a career fulfillment exercise I do with my clients, which is really looking at the trifecta, which I call the sweet spot of what do you love, what are you good at, and what does the world need? So it's really getting to know those answers for yourself.
Those are really great questions. You said, what do you love? Right? Did you say that?
Yeah.
What else? What do you love?
What are you great at?
What are you great at? Okay.
And what does the world need?
And what does the world need? Okay. Sweet. All right. Okay. Awesome. So those are great starter questions for somebody that's listening that may be thinking that that's where they're at, right, in their career, and thinking, there's more. I need to be doing more with what I have and who I am. And so when someone's working with you and looking at their mind, their body, their soul, you said when you were doing your apprenticeship, you were working with recovering addicts. Tell me more about that, and what advice can we give? What are like your top 3 or 5 or however many or 1 tips that you could give to somebody on how they can work on their mind, their body, and their soul?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So what I was noticing with the addicts was they were coming in and they were really out of their body and they didn't have a lot of hope. And then they had environments set up that weren't healthy. And so for them, it was really just first and foremost, which is definitely one of my tips, it's becoming present. And we can talk about what that means. But the second is really around mindset or belief systems. A lot of them felt like, there was shame and guilt, and there's frustration that things weren't changing, and things they were telling themselves that were perpetuating different life circumstances. But this is the same thing with high performing individuals as well. They also have mindset pieces that limit them and hold them back. So it's really examining our belief systems and what is a limiting belief versus like more of an expansion belief. And then the third is, it really is about, it sounds so cliche, but it's really like this whole going for your dreams. It is ultimately about what brings you joy. I have a joy list exercise that I give to people, and I have a video on YouTube on it, but it's starting to get in touch with what are the activities that bring you a lot of joy, and scheduling them, actually planning them, including them in your life, because that is where the mind, body, and soul starts to really come together, because the soul is about being lit up and shining and feeling these higher vibrations and frequencies. The body is happy when it's doing what it loves, right? And you start to then grow the cellular memory, so it realizes it does deserve pleasure. It does deserve to have fun and to have joy. And then the mind is sort of falls into line, which is like, oh yeah, I do deserve this. I can have this because right now in this moment, in this present moment, I am having it. So it's creating a joy list and actually doing it. So those would be my top 3. And the horses, in my mind, they do help with all 3, but they really help with that first one the most, which is being present, staying in the present moment, because that's where we make our healthy and empowered choices from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How do horses help us with all these types of things?
Yeah, so ultimately horses are so many different things that we have to keep in mind. One is they're a prey animal, right? So that's normally a deer or a bunny. And for them to partner with predators, there has to be trust. They are reading our energy to see if we are people they can be around, if they want to be around us. They are in the present moment. We have to be present when we're with them because they're 1,200 pounds of bone and muscle, and it's for our safety to stay present with them. And they live in that space, so we're in that space and we're being with them. We naturally become present, and they follow what feels good. So they live from their guts and their hearts way more than their thinking brains. And so they're not like, should I do this? They're not thinking about whether they deserve it or not. They are literally going from this feels good, I want to be in this space, or this doesn't feel good. So that joyless piece is like that following what sparks joy and what feels good is something they naturally do. So we have all these conversations when we're on the field with them. And in the coaching place, that middle one, that mindset piece, it comes up a lot because how we do one thing is how we might do anything. So how I approach a horse brings up the mindset pieces. Am I getting a rejection? If so, what's the story I'm telling myself about myself when the horse doesn't say hello? Am I getting connection? If so, what story is created there? So there's a lot of different pieces that come in around those different elements.
Yeah, great answer. And I've experienced that myself in the time that I've spent with horses. It's been incredibly transformational. Like they are, because you're right, they read your energy and they have this sense of, you have to have a sense of calm about you for them to have a sense of calm about them. Because like you said, they're $1,200, $1,200, 1,200
They can
pounds.
be. They can be. They can cost that much.
Absolutely. And so when you're working with people, can you tell us a couple stories of some success stories that you've had from the work that you're currently doing now with clients?
Yeah, so a lot. I mean, it can be as simple and as basic as people are taking more conscious breaths. People are slowing down. They're stepping back into parasympathetic nervous system and they're getting a reset and rejuvenation. They take that calm back into their day. They sleep better. They're better for their kids and their partners. Those are some of the basics. Then it grows from there to becoming more self-aware, starting to question the limiting beliefs, and starting to live a life of more purpose and more connection. So I've had so many people just naturally their relationships start to get better. People who are either going through a divorce and forgive their partner, their ex, much faster, and can have a relationship with that person rather than, feeling a lot of shame and judgment. And people who are finding more meaningful work that all of a sudden, they're like, I do deserve better. I'm going for it. And they get a new job. And we work through some of that envisioning and manifesting as well. The horses are great manifestation partners. They don't have any, again, blocks on receiving. They just allow. So a lot of what we're doing is the spiritual psychology work with the horses. And ultimately, it's becoming better versions of ourselves through these different kind of emotional intelligence experiences that we grow. So we'll grow trust. For me, I was a type A person. Now I call myself a type B plus. So I do not have this like hard drive to me anymore because the horses have really helped me realize that relationships and being is something to value even over just doing and getting stuff done. So I feel like I'm a great case study of things that have really improved over the years working with the horses. And I'm in bliss a lot when I'm with them. And that's something I want for other people as well. I want them to experience that bliss and that higher frequency energy and to have the escape from just the day-to-day grind and really get out into nature and feel super loved up by these incredible beings and grow their intuition. That's another big piece of what we do together. We start growing intuition too and listening to the voice that has all the answers for us that helps us.
Yeah, big time. Absolutely. So you mentioned something about relationships and trusting ourselves and growing through that intuition and doing that by working with you and with these horses. So when someone is, let's say, like you said, considering a divorce or going through a divorce, and then you're helping them work through that and working on forgiveness. And you talked about breath work. What's something that people can do like right now today that can help them with these tough decisions that they're going through or these blocks that they're in?
Yeah. So with the divorce one in particular, it really is coming to the understanding that everyone's doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so to really take off these higher expectations that everyone should be like us, or that, that things shouldn't have gone the way they did. It's like coming into that full acceptance, doing some of that forgiveness work of ourselves and others, and taking some of the pressure off, right? So recently there was a client session on how do we not sweat the small stuff, right? And how do we take a breath, recenter, and focus on what it is that we want to create. So I'm very solution driven, as are the horses. They are not really interested in the pity party. They are like, okay, so that hasn't been working for you. Now you see that, right? The like, I want to be angry at my ex forever. It's like, how's that working? It's not. Can we release the anger in real time? And can we think about what do you want to feel? And how do we start to grow that? And so we'll see the reactions from the horses when we're in anger and how it starts to create disconnection from ourselves and others, because the horse will walk away, or the horse isn't interested, or they can even be aggressive and push, not aggressive, but push into our boundaries and our space. And so we start to, in real time, with our mind, body, and soul together, create the healthy boundaries, create the solutions, create the ways of beings and the mindsets that create what we want. So it's real-time practice of solutions for any life situation, but often it does come down to relationships, with the most important relationship being the one we have with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Have you always had a great relationship with yourself?
No, not at all. Not at all. Oh my gosh. That's why I feel like I'm one of the best case studies for this. So in college, I was actually like slightly suicidal. I was alcohol dependent. I was so mad at myself after my first breakup because he loved me deeply and I just wasn't that nice to him. And then that's what set me on my journey, though, of positive psychology and, going to a therapist for the first time in my early 20s and realizing that, finding Louise Hay's book, who's like the queen of the mind, body, soul, right? Louise Hay with You Can Heal Your Life, reading that, realizing all of this, and then saying, okay, I don't want to be beating myself up anymore, whether I was drinking. And literally the next day, I was more harsh on myself than even the alcohol was to my body, and letting go of that. And then the suicidal piece was really because I was so dedicated to my ego and like believing my own thoughts rather than questioning my thoughts, especially if they're not true and they're negative, which 80% of our thoughts are negative. It's crazy. So questioning them and then being more connected to my soul, really having the soul journey of how can I be of service? What do I love? What am I here for? How can life be fun? How can I live a life that rocks? Rather than this egoic pursuit of like title and money and stuff that is ultimately mostly empty fulfillment for us, because really the heart wants something deeper.
Mm-hmm. What is that? What is that deeper deepness, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because in our society it's so much about what we're getting and what we're achieving, what we're doing, and then to switch gears from that into something deeper. Well, was that scary for you?
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think of like the United States as just it's like this American dream thing. Well, on some side of the coin, it's great. On the other side, it can be very detrimental, and we have to keep it in check. Other countries take siestas. They understand about relaxation. They have a culture around community, and they're happier. It's a great documentary called Happy, and it is not about how much money we make. It is truly about how much love and connection there is in our lives, which is why I love the Animals for People, because it's immediately bringing you love and connection. It's worth every penny, because it just reprograms us into believing that we are deserving of love and we are love. So that's a big piece. But was it hard? Yeah. I mean, I left a 6-figure job with a vice president title at a young age without, really knowing what the future would hold. And I first started a conscious media channel because I wanted to, again, I still had this big, like, I'm going to be the next Oprah type stuff, right? Again, sometimes a little bit ego driven. And then luckily the horses just came in and were like, okay, time for you to be a different person. And I feel like I've changed over time. So it wasn't super rapid the way you see some people have like a near-death experience and wake up as a totally different person. That to me is like, that'd be scary. But mine was over time. But that first leap was scary. And I don't think of myself as someone that takes risks, but then my friends see me that way. They're like, you moved across the country without knowing anyone. You left a 6-figure job without, what did you do for health insurance? And I'm like, but I haven't really let fear get in the way. I just am like, I want this. I'm going for it. And we all should. Like, if I can do it, anyone can, right? So.
Sure. Yes. Yes. And so you left your 6-figure job and you traveled across the country and you just went for it. And what inside of you made you, when did that spark occur? When you were like, you know what, I think there's something more?
I think I had known that for a while, which is why I got my master's in spiritual psychology and knew that there had to be something else besides just this kind of goal line pursuit of title and status and money. And then for me, I had 2 aha moments. One was when I realized what the horses were doing and realized how powerful they were as master spiritual teachers. The other was when I was in my studio job and I was selling horror movies. And here I am getting my master's and in the spiritual psychology realm and going to a church called Agape, which is about unconditional love. And I'm like, I'm so out of alignment. I cannot live this incongruent life anymore. And kind of lifted above myself and was like, what are you doing selling this horror movie? You don't believe in any of this. And so it's more paths of integrity, really committing to that. And I think we are either, pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure. And I used to be really pushed by pain. That's what caused me to change. That's how a lot of us learn. But I want to be a voice, and I am a voice for my clients, that we can be pulled by pleasure. And so it's like, what do people want? How do we get there? Who do we need to become to have the life of our dreams? And so it really is, can we learn through joy and fun rather than through pain?
Yeah. Yeah. Can we learn through fun? And I love that you said that, pushed by pain or pulled by pleasure. And it must take a lot of courage to be able to be pulled by pleasure and to be able to, you said passive integrity. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means to you?
Yeah, I think so. The path of integrity is more about knowing who we are as souls, like as actual divine beings having a human experience, that the human experience is here to teach us. I believe life is a school. And so it's coming to the alignment. My professors from my program, they have a book called Loyalty to Your Soul. So to me, that's the highest form of integrity, which is, how do we, I love the podcast title because it's really about the bridging of these 3 and that they're all important. But so often, we don't always have teachers reminding us that to be loyal to our soul, that there's a path of integrity there. And for me, that really was about like, what's my calling rather than being in a career, right? What's my purpose? How can I make a meaningful contribution on the planet, right? That's when I feel most alive. And that's what I want for others, is for people to feel that aliveness. And that's when we thrive too, right? It's like when we are out of alignment and trying to force things, that stuff doesn't often work. And that's when we struggle a little more.
Hmm. Yeah. And that I can imagine that would be hard because when you're struggling, do you think it's possible that people can be angry at God for them going through a hard time?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that myself in the past. I mean, I was an atheist, so I feel like I came into this lifetime angry at God. So it is something that I've had to work with actually quite a bit. I've seen my clients go through it with death and loss, and it can be there. And then it's an element of radical compassion and forgiveness, and also seeing the bigger picture, right? That things are happening for us, not always just to us, but for us. And what is the silver lining? I mean, the pandemic was hard for a lot of people, but for me, I was always seeing the silver lining in it. And so it wasn't that difficult. It was really actually a very beautiful, easy year. And at times I felt guilty for that, but it was because not everyone was going through that, but it was really the way I was holding it. And that's, so we have a belief system that outer reality is a reflection of inner reality. So if I'm holding a lot of anger, I'm probably going to see stuff in the world that feels a little bit more aggressive, combative, violent, versus holding more of that peace and then seeing that reflected back to myself.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I felt the same way. COVID taught me a lot as well. And that year, I have a son, and so spending a lot of time with him being homeschooled, and just hearing. Yeah, my mom just commented. She said it was a time of reflection, and it still in a way is, because we're still going through it now. Last year we were locked down a lot more than we are right now. At least for us in Colorado, other states are still going through their challenges in other countries as well. So yeah, definitely a time to reflect. What did you learn last year in your coaching practice and in your life?
So much. I feel like at some point I want to do a video or just blog about that, because there's a lot. And I actually ask my clients all to do this, like, what's COVID teaching you? What is, how has it become your teacher? And for me, it was really so much about focus, like that. I'm an extrovert, and if I spread myself too thin, not much moves forward very quickly, whereas a lot moved forward last year because I really was able to focus fully on my business and not be distracted. So shiny object syndrome disappeared. And what's possible when we focus, we are productive. And also a time when I realized that connection is like truly the biggest thing that we all value. And whether that's working in an office with people, that it is really important, or time with our family and time in nature. And for me, I spent almost every single day of 2020 in nature, and so it was just a huge reminder that we get grounded by being outside and sitting on the land, and that nature was not affected by all of this, so to speak. I mean, they were, but there wasn't judgment, right? There isn't this like, this is wrong, and wishing it was different. There's just a lot of acceptance in nature, and so it was a great teacher and a great reflection for me last year.
Mm-hmm. My mom says, I agree.
Yay!
Yay! Yeah, my mom used to work with she used to work with horses a lot when she was a little girl. So
Cool.
we've talked about it. We're like, we need to go out and hang out with some horses. And yeah, and I'm like, whatever we can do. I emailed a place the other day here in Parker, or in Franktown, to go and like, can I just come pick up the poop? I don't care. Like, I just want to be around them and get started and do stuff, because it's so true. And you're right. I totally agree with you. Last year, shiny object syndrome disappeared because like we were forced to have, like, I think, forced / had a choice to really focus on who do I want to be and how do I want to show up and what do I want to spend my time doing. That was a big one, right? And getting these, especially for women like you and I and other women listening who, whether we're in business or we have, like my mom, she loves flying. She's an amazing artist. So being able to really get down to like, let me figure this out. Yeah, my mom says she was forced to be creative, and it's amazing. So I'll have to show you her painting sometime. She did this huge painting for her living room. She's like, this is the last one I'm ever going to do. I'm just calling you out, Mom. I know it's not the last one you're ever going to do. She's like, this is my masterpiece. I am retiring. I'm like, okay. We will see. And then you said connection is number one. And I agree with that. We talk about that in the 12-step program of Narcotics Anonymous, that the opposite of addiction is connection, which is why it can be really beneficial for, alcoholics and addicts to come into a 12-step program in the beginning or forever, to come in because we have connection in the community and with people who are kind of crazy, because we say not to make this call about, or this episode about drugs and alcohol, but it's not natural for someone who does drugs and alcohol their whole life to be sober. And then once we are sober, it's like, oh, well, this isn't natural. So then finding connection with people who understand what that feels like and how hard it is to live life sober is really, really beneficial. And then, like you're saying, people coming out and working with you and the horses and how within 2 hours they're seeing huge transformation. So I can imagine anybody that's feeling, that they want more creativity, they want more gratitude and more enthusiasm, and they want to accomplish their goals through self-awareness would just benefit extremely through being able to work with you. So I'm kind of, I'm out of questions. You've answered so many and you're so detailed, but I'd love to open up the floor to you on anything else that you feel is important for people to know about the work that you do, or just your general, or detailed thoughts on mind, body, and soul, and how they all connect and how we can move forward as a country and as a world coming out of such a tumultuous year. And this year is tough too. There's news every day of new things happening, and we're not in the clear quite yet. So, the floor is yours on all those topics.
I love it. So much there. Yeah. So I love that you brought up the piece around like sober, not always feeling like totally comfortable, because I feel like how I can relate on that is like my talking to animals and my love for animals is very different, I think, than other people's, so to speak, or even the spiritual gifts that we start to open up, listening to our intuition. We're labeled as woo-woo if we get, into this space. But yet what I think is so interesting is like, this has been my journey, is like, how do we find the tribe that we're most meant to be with, that we do feel comfortable, like our weird matches their weird, right? Or our uniqueness matches their uniqueness. And that's what's best for connection. Like I sometimes do connect better to animals than humans, and I'll go back and forth with that, but there's so much power in what I call the human animal bond and there's research done on this of like the emotional, physical, mental benefits, which goes right into mind, body, and soul, that they've done research around of having animals in our lives, right? So the heart rate changing and our willingness to go out more and connect with others, becoming, not being as isolated, feeling like we have a purpose and things to live for. So I find that coaching is really, those that understand the connection between mind, body, and soul is really powerful, because there's a lot of coaches that will just do mindset, and you're just, we're not talking heads. And there's folks that are more on the body side, right? They're just in the health and wellness space and they're improving your body. But those that can really reach, which is what I felt like the spiritual psychology masters did, and why I work with a lot of women in transition, going through different life transition, it's because we address the holistic piece, right? We address all of it. And what I find the most fascinating with the horses is that it's so somatic. It's kinesthetic, it's experiential. So we're not talking about leadership and having an idea of like, oh yeah, maybe I could do that. It's like you're in real time taking a lead rope or not and walking with a 1,200-pound animal. And are they joined with you? Is there connection? If there isn't, how do we create connection? And so what has been interesting too is that trauma, as you know, like lives in the body. So what's so cool about the horses is that I believe they're energy workers, and they will go right to a place in the body where there is often stuck energy because of mindsets, and they'll help with it. Like you'll see them start to like pull energy and yawn. And then people were like, wow, my heart doesn't hurt as much, or they'll have pain in their body and they'll go, that pain's gone. So it's really, really neat how they're really full whole beings, and they help us with that wholeness as well. So I am a great coach, but then having these beings that really have a huge holistic understanding, it just adds so much value to it than maybe a traditional approach or a one-sided approach, which is important if we want to dive into a certain area. But I like the balancing of these different mind, body, soul pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah. So connection, definitely, with finding people who resonate your frequency, that's actually the best connection. We don't have to force other connection. And I found for a lot of people, even through 2020, a lot of friendships have fallen through. A lot of, people that maybe we were resonating with, we aren't anymore. And then we saw the political landscape change significantly too. But ultimately, I am so not interested in the divisiveness. I may have different feelings about things like the vaccine or whatnot than others, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop listening to people, right? Or that I have to be heard or that I have to be right. One of the things we say in coaching and what the horses will always support is, wouldn't you rather be happy than right? Wouldn't you rather feel good than force, right? So it's like ultimately relationship trumps all. It really does. So going back to first relationship with ourselves, relationship with our soul, and then relationship with others.
Such great insight and ideas for people to ponder on. And you're right. Have you ever read the book called How to Win Friends and Influence People?
No, but I know others that have, and it looks awesome.
It's such an old school book, but it has so much wisdom in it. And one of the things, I'm just echoing your point. Maybe you could write this book, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, like how it's never really, it doesn't help win friends and it doesn't help to influence people by only arguing with them. It does help to see each other's sides and, to be able to, ask more questions and learn more about their perspective. And that can help create that connection, deepen relationships, which does ultimately, I believe, lead to happiness, which does also reduce stress. And stress in the body is what causes dis-ease, right? Disease is dis-ease. We're not comfortable. We're not at ease with something in our life. And of course, there's the supplements we're taking or the food we're eating that's in our home. You're into the same things that I am, which is, like I would say, instead of burning a candle, put on a diffuser. Instead of cleaning with Clorox, clean with On Guard, like I would say, or Thieves, right? I know you like Young Living as well. So like, cleaning with non-toxic things and breathing in different things and what we're believing and how we're treating others is ultimately a reflection of how we view and treat ourselves as well. So the more loving and kind we can be to ourselves, I think the more loving and kind we can be to others. Because reality is, what's that one? Reality is not subjective. Help me out here, Kate.
Objective? I'm not sure.
Perceived
is what you think it is.
Yes.
Your reality in every single day. That's why we're creators. We're powerful and we have to watch it. We have to be careful sometimes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So all of that is just amazing. And hopefully people who are listening now and on the podcast just know how powerful you are and that the light within you is on and it wants to shine brighter, especially this year. I think it's a year of communication and numerology. It's a 5-year. And so it makes sense that friendships are being formed and other friendships are coming to a close because we're communicating more clearly about who we are and what we need in our lives. Because last year, I think a lot of us that were tolerating things in our lives, we're not tolerating those anymore. And that's good. That's really good.
Yes. I love that you said that. And I also have to say, I love, like, just for people listening to really remember that what you said of what you put in your body and your mind and what you do for your soul really do matter. Those choices are huge and important. And if we stay present, we stay in our power and we can make better choices. But ultimately, my big mission is to get people to return to the natural world, right? So plants with the oils and looking at herbs and looking at whole organic foods and looking at vegetarian lifestyles and looking at the earth and what the earth has. Like, we never look at a tree and go, God, I wish that branch was there, or that tree's stub's too fat, or we're not judging nature. We're accepting and embracing it and loving it and seeing the beauty. So it's important for us to see that reflection back to ourselves, that we're part of nature. And then we can partner more with the natural world, right? We can learn from animals. We can communicate with animals. We can receive from them. We can give to them. And to get more connected. I feel like there's going to be a bigger movement, and I think a lot of it's starting in Colorado around plant wisdom and element wisdom and earth wisdom and animal wisdom. And it's just like more of that. That's what I'm interested in supporting. And I know you are too. So.
Yep. So how can people get a hold of you? What does it look like to work with you? And all those kinds of things.
Yeah, sure. So my current website is consciousrockstar.com. It will eventually link to my name with a new website. And I'm on Instagram, Kate Nalligan Equine Coach. Same on Facebook. And then I have, for horse lovers, I have a group on Facebook called Equine Rockstars. So I do private sessions in person and also virtually, do group workshops and sometimes themes that I put on. So like on Earth Day, I'll do one with communicating with animals and nature. And then there's also people can bring groups themselves. And I do team building and leadership training with companies as well. So I work out of a Longmont near Boulder. Sorry, I work out of at a ranch in Longmont, which is near Boulder, and also travel and have gone to different ranches to work with people where they are as well.
Very cool. Well, any last words for our audience before we wrap things up?
I just am so grateful that you had me on, and I want people to consider oils. I want people to consider horses and to really start to think about different ways that they can help themselves that are more of that being pulled by pleasure. Like we can learn and grow through having fun and finding new ways to do personal development that are exciting rather than kind of maybe the older models of just talking things out. Really, there's new ways of growing and healing available to us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kate, again for being on. And I will go ahead and end the broadcast, and then you and I will wrap back up. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.